And for more on this, we're now joined by the director of the Center for Responsible Leadership Studies at Stellenbosch Business School, Professor Mias de Klerk, and he joins us via our video link. And Mr. de Klerk, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. I mean, let's start off here. I mean, why did you see the need to come up with a manifesto that actually speaks about leaders and not the people?
Thank you, Mbali, and thanks for the opportunity. We've been doing research on responsible leadership, the effect of that and the need for that for quite some time, and indeed it's been done globally. And middle last year we said, well, with the leadership crisis happening in South Africa and in the world, we need to do something. And we decided that we're going to put the research together, draft this manifesto that consists of 10 principles, and launch it publicly so people can use it. Firstly, the leaders can use it, as you've said, to stress test themselves. Who am I supposed to be as a leader and what I'm supposed to do? And secondly, also for everyone else who don't see themselves as people in official leadership positions, to assess their leaders. To what extent are their leaders acting and behaving the way that they should? And
when it comes to, just leadership as a whole in South Africa, one would say that it has really deteriorated quite a bit. And especially when you look at those researches and reports which have been conducted by a number of people, how important is it for leaders, especially this manifesto, to ensure that people know exactly who they are voting for and whether, of course, they can lead society?
Well, keeping the election in mind specifically, we think we vote for a political party, but we're actually voting for individuals. We're voting for the leaders of that party, because a party cannot do anything. It's the leaders, the people that enact what they're supposed to do or don't enact what they're supposed to do. And therefore it's critical that when one goes to the polling station, that you look at the leaders that represent a specific party and ask yourself, to what extent do they serve this country? To what extent do they serve all the stakeholders, not just an exclusive few? To what extent are they committed to deliver? To what extent do they accept liability for the things that's been entrusted to them, or do they just make excuses? Now, these are just 3 of the principles that we have in the manifesto, but I trust that you can see how powerful it is to have these 10 principles as a useful way to assess leaders, not just think from your emotions, but you use the principles and you can assess the leaders.
And accountability is very important, and it's often something that a number of South Africans ask of leaders. To what extent do leaders hold themselves accountable in this country?
On the political side, unfortunately, I don't see many leaders keeping themselves accountable. I see leaders trying to explain and rationalize things away, rather than to accept liability for what they are supposed to do. We easily talk about accountability, and many leaders want accountability without really understanding what it means. But with accountability comes a liability to give account for what you're doing, a liability to give reckoning for what you have been doing or what you've not been doing. And without that, we're not going to go forward. And part of this is also to understand that if I'm in a formal leadership position, I even have responsibility for the decisions and actions of my followers. If one of my followers, somebody reporting to me, is not doing what they're supposed to do, I have to keep them accountable in turn. And if I don't, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do.
And this manifesto or this stress test that you want various leaders to do, how does it coincide with the pledge that political leaders are made to do just before we go to elections by the IEC?
I am not very familiar with exactly that pledge, so I cannot really comment on that. If they have something similar, then it is wonderful. However, the manifesto are words on paper, a pledge are words on paper, and even if it's spoken, and unless somebody do something with that, unless they enact it, it doesn't mean anything. What we hope that will happen with the manifesto, as I've said, is that leaders don't only pledge and keep themselves or assess themselves, but that we keep our leaders accountable for keeping to this pledge and keeping to the manifesto.
And do you think that this manifesto will somehow seek to rebuild South Africa's moral fibre, especially when it comes to the value of leadership?
I certainly hope so. I've got I'm not naive to think it's going to change the world overnight. One of the principles that we use in leadership development is we start with ourselves and we change little by little. I cannot change anyone else. I can change myself. And if I change myself within my sphere of control and within my sphere of influence, I hopefully will inspire other people to also change themselves. And if I keep my leader accountable, I hopefully will inspire other people to keep their leaders accountable. And slowly but surely, we see a ripple effect and hope that this is going to make a difference in the longer term. And something that starts small, but it can make a big difference.
And Mr. de Klerk, I mean, we are speaking about leaders and political leaders here in South Africa, and I mean, they are at the center of this manifesto. Will you be engaging with these leaders, especially as we head towards the elections, to ensure that this manifesto is actually effective?
It's difficult to engage with political leaders, especially this time. They've got their own party manifestos that they are launching, and so it's just difficult to get hold of them. But I hope through the launch of this, we will get in contact with more of them. This is I think it's the 8th interview that I've had the last week. I hope that somebody somewhere is hearing this, and we will continue trying to get hold of leaders. We will continue trying to influence them. I've had some inquiries already from not political leaders, but from business leaders to talk about this and to take this further. So I really hope that more opportunities for engagement will arrive.
Professor, thank you so much for your time. That is Professor Mias de Klerk. He is from the Stellenbosch Business School and he is the director of the Centre for Responsible Leadership Studies.